Hello, welcome to Popcorn, a podcast run by students at Hidden Lake High School, bringing to light new information on the Serial podcast. I'm Brian Taryn. Now that a few years have passed since Serial's initial conclusion, you'll get a chance to hear more on the story right here on Popcorn.
Previously on Serial.
Did anybody else use the phone?
Yeah, Adnan, I remember he was talking to a girl. He put me on the phone with her for like 3 minutes. I said hello to her.
When Serial was first released, it brought to light many questions that remained unanswered in Adnan's case. However, it also left new questions unanswered as well. Since Serial's conclusion back in 2014, tons of new information has come up. I'm here to fill you in on that knowledge. However, before that, let's refresh our memories on what we do know so far after listening to Serial. Around 18 years ago, on January 13th, 1999, a girl named Hae Min Lee disappeared without a trace for about a month. Her body would later be discovered at Lincoln Park in Baltimore. The day she disappeared, she was supposed to pick up her little cousin from kindergarten, but she never showed up. About a month later, Hae's body would be found at Lincoln Park. Her body had been found by a so-called Mr. S, a maintenance guy that claimed he found her right after stepping out to take a leak after work. Some of her hair had been peeking out from the ground just by chance. Her cause of death had been manual strangulation, meaning whoever did it murdered her with their own two hands. This would have to be someone that would have a very close and personal connection to Hae. 6 weeks after Hae went missing, her ex-boyfriend, Adnan, would get arrested and charged for the death of her ex-girlfriend due to Jay's testimony. As for Adnan, he's been locked up ever since. Now, this is where it gets quite interesting. The day Hae had gone missing, there was supposedly a wrestling match that she had to attend to that night. She was the manager of the Woodland High School wrestling team after all, and wouldn't have been able to leave. Her co-manager, Summer, remembers this quite clearly, considering she had to do all the work by herself. She had just joined not too long ago and didn't know how to handle things properly. So when she was left doing all the work by herself, it kinda stuck with her. Summer remembers talking to Hae that day until 2:50 or 3 p.m. that evening about attending the wrestling match. But the odd thing about Summer's claim was, there was no wrestling match that night on January 13th. The Rodstone match had been held a week prior to Hae's disappearance. This was a major fact in Adnan's case because it means Summer's recollection of the event that night are inaccurate, putting Becky as the last person to see Hae alive at 2:15 p.m. Meaning Adnan had more time to carry out the murder and for everything to happen like just Jay's testimony. While we're on the topic of Jay's testimony, there was one thing that didn't add up. This was the lividity found on Hae's body. When a person dies, the heart stops pumping blood around the body, and that blood starts to settle on the lowest portion of the body. This process is known as lividity, or livor mortis. Usually, lividity commonly happens a couple hours after death and becomes fully fixed at 8 to 12 hours after death. Now, in Jay's testimony, Hae had been killed by 3:16 p.m. and had been placed in the trunk of her own car. 4 to 5 hours later, they would remove her from the car and bury her at around 7 p.m. When Hae's body was found, she had been buried at her right side. If the body had really been contorted for 4 to 5 hours after death, then there should have been lividity on her side, right? Well, according to the autopsy report, the lividity found on Hae's body was present. However, it was found on the anterior surface of her body and not the side, meaning the front. The lividity from the autopsy also indicated that the body had been stretched out and placed face down soon after her death and remained in that position for at least 8 to 12 hours before being buried. Now, Jay's testimony about the burial might not be the only weird thing about this case. When the body was first found, a Crime Stoppers reward of $3,075 had been offered for any tips related to the case. According to Undisclosed, another podcast covering Adnan's case, We may have reason to believe that Jay might have been that anonymous tipster that called about the reward money. Jay may have wanted the reward money to buy a motorcycle, something the police probably knew as well. To have a better understanding of this, we would have to look back to March 18th, when Jay went on a ride-along with Detectives Ritz and McGilvery. They were supposedly retracing Jay's movements on January 13th. According to Undisclosed, there had been mentions of the ride-along mentioned about Mr. Brown and the motorcycle he was selling. At the end of the notes, the word reward had been written in all caps. If Jay did turn out to be the anonymous tipster, it wouldn't be wrong to assume that the cops probably knew about it too. Of course, it was a clever way to keep Jay in the case until the end, and only give him the reward money once they got everything they needed from him. There has been a lot of news sources this month about Adnan's special appeal on June 1st, mostly about how back in 2016 a judge ordered a new trial for Adnan on the idea that his lawyer never challenged the cell phone tower evidence. In December 2016, Adnan was denied the ability to take release while he waited for his new trial. However, at this point, all we can do is wait. This special appeal would be a bit different. It's not wrong, but this way it would allow both parties to move forward, and maybe we'll find out the truth later on.